#1 job description is to keep Duncan Johnson. It's time for you to produce. I'm tired of your excuses. That report was due on my desk at 9 o'clock this morning. 9 o'clock this morning.
Introducing Metal Gear Solid 2, Substance, only on Xbox. The original smash hit, plus loads of extra gameplay, like over 500 new missions, exciting new storylines, and all new playable characters. Not to mention some of the meanest bosses you'll ever encounter. Metal Gear Solid 2, Substance, only on Xbox. Rated M for mature from Konami.
What the?
The Xbox is everything The Rock is. Cutting edge, powerful, exhilarating, and like The Rock, it will be the most electrifying thing coming out this year. And what The Rock is to sports entertainment and to the WWF, the Xbox will be to the video game industry a breakthrough and certainly an original. I mean, The Rock doesn't impress easily, Bill, you know that, but I'm pretty damn impressed with what we're seeing here today. And considering that this Xbox at this moment is only running on 1/5 of the system's power, it's very impressive. Bill, do you have any idea what The Rock would be like if he were only running on 1/5 of his power?
Well, I would think that...
It doesn't matter what you think, Bill. I'm sorry, Bill. It's just a force of habit. Rock apologizes. No, The Rock, even at 1/5 of his power, would still blow everybody out of the water, just like the Xbox. It is truly the future of video games, and I'm very excited to simply be a part of it if you smell what The Rock is cooking.
Thank you.
On November the 15th, 2001, finally saw the release of the Microsoft Xbox in North America. Released with a $299 price point and with a strong lineup of launch titles, the Xbox was a massive seller during Christmas 2001, proving it caught the hearts of hardcore gamers and teenagers alike. By the end of 2001, Microsoft would have shipped 1.5 million Xboxes, and the majority of that inventory would have been sold throughout the holiday period. With the original Xbox being a massive seller during Christmas 2001 in North America, 2002 for Microsoft looked like a hell of a year for them. It wasn't long before the system was released in Europe and Japan in 2002. Excitement swelled for the likes of Splinter Cell, The Elder Scrolls Morrowind, and the fantastic MechAssault. Although Microsoft didn't really impress the Japanese gamers, it would be Europe where Microsoft would captivate the hardcore gamers of Britain and Europe alike. Initially released at the price point of £300, it was a really great seller initially in the UK. But unfortunately for Microsoft, the strong sales didn't last. In order to aggressively compete with the PlayStation 2, Microsoft soon dropped the price of the Xbox console from £300 down to £199. Not only did this price drop come only 2 months after the initial launch in Europe, but gamers who forked out full price for the machine on launch day were really pissed off at Microsoft. Understandably, Microsoft knew that these early adopters would be pissed off at the sudden price drop and offered the early adopters some free games for the trouble of actually going down and picking the console up for £300 on the launch day. The Xbox was the hardcore gamers console of choice for that time, But the general consensus from gaming retail during its earlier years was the fact that the Xbox really didn't offer much over the PlayStation 2. There were reports from gaming retailers and the press alike that the original Xbox was just providing really sluggish sales for some stores. Microsoft was also concerned about the dire performance of the console's sales in Japan as well. With the reports of the console not selling very well in Japan, the press wanted to know how many consoles were actually sold to consumers in that particular region, but Microsoft would not release those particular figures at that time and would only state that they had shipped 1.5 million Xboxes in the US the previous year. Nevertheless, Microsoft was still optimistic that they would still meet their sales targets by the end of 2002. But the Xbox was still priced higher than the PlayStation 2 in Japan, which would be the only region in the world where the Xbox sold at a higher price than the PlayStation 2. And thus, Microsoft would struggle to try and grab a share of the Japanese market. Excluding the UK, the rest of Europe would receive a price drop which would knock down the original Xbox to €249, from the original €479. And at this time of this sudden price drop, the Nintendo GameCube hadn't been released yet in Europe, with the reported price tag of £150. Nintendo at the time weren't concerned about the initial Xbox price cut, stating that they didn't believe that the Xbox would harm their initial launch plans. 2002 is a mixed year for Microsoft. To coincide with the 2002 UK launch of the Xbox, Microsoft obviously wanted to raise awareness about its new console in that particular region, but the Independent Television Committee, ITC, swiftly banned a television commercial advertising the original Xbox after complaints that the advertisement was shocking, offensive and in bad taste. One of the biggest business decisions that Microsoft made during 2002 was the acquisition of Rare for $375 million. This gave Microsoft 100% of the company, and it's from this point in gaming history that Rare will exclusively be a first-party developer for Microsoft. This meant that Donkey Kong Racing, which was due for release on the Nintendo GameCube, was left unreleased. The trademarks from the characters that Rare created for the Nintendo consoles, such as Conker of Conker's Bad Fur Day and Banjo of the Banjo-Kazooie games, are intellectual properties owned by Rare. But properties which are owned by Nintendo, such as Donkey Kong and Star Fox, are owned by Nintendo and are no longer associated with Rare. Star Fox Adventures, originally known as Dinosaur Planet for the Nintendo 64, was delayed for a number of years until it was finally released for the Nintendo GameCube. This is the only Rare developed game for Nintendo's 6th generation console. Despite the acquisition, Rare would still develop games for Nintendo's handheld consoles over the years, as Microsoft is not participating in the handheld console market. It would be 2003 when Rare would release their first Microsoft developed game, Grabbed by the Ghoulies. In 2005, Rare would re-release Conker's Bad Fur Day as Conker Live and Reloaded for the Xbox. This particular release would see an overhaul in graphics, sound, and have a fully online option for multiplayer action. While both games aren't massive system sellers, both particular titles received favourable reviews and cemented their place in the Xbox's portfolio as quality titles. Although some gamers out there didn't think the whole acquisition of Rare by Microsoft was a good thing for the gaming industry. They stated that Microsoft was just merely buying their way into the gaming industry, and that they could have set up their own studios to create their own original IP without buying another studio outright. At the end of August 2002, Microsoft started its Xbox Live beta test. During this time, for the majority of people out there, online gaming for consoles was an unfamiliar process, but Microsoft had the infrastructure and the money to actually make the whole thing work, and it had to be put through its paces before it went into full release. The Xbox was made ground up for broadband gaming, and when it was originally released in 2001 in the US, the as yet unnamed online service was destined for summer 2002 deployment. Xbox Live was finally given its name at E3 2002. Xbox Live's reveal at E3 came complete with sound dampened booths and an early version of Unreal Championship and an RC racer called Revolt Live. Xbox Live beta testers would pay $49.99 for the Xbox Live starter kits that we would see later on in November. Complete with a headset and a year's subscription once the service went fully live later that year, users would receive a demo of Revolt Live. This would be the only chance that gamers would have to play Revolt Live, as it was never released. Microsoft would announce that over 50 titles the following year would have Xbox Live support. Overall, 2002 helped the Xbox gain some momentum. Although the console gained strong third-party support from its inception, many early Xbox games did not fully use its powerful hardware, with few additional features or graphical improvements to distinguish them from the PS2 versions. It's probably fair to say that the Xbox had a slow start during 2001 and 2002, but I would say that the Xbox had some really good highlights. 2002 brought the Xbox MotoGP, MechAssault, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, and of course, Splinter Cell. By the end of 2002, Microsoft would have shipped a total of 8 million Xbox units. Along with some strong third-party and first-party titles which were released in 2002, 2003 and 2004 would also help strengthen the Xbox's portfolio, rather than just being a machine which had lots of PlayStation 2 ports. In 2002 had its fair share of classic Xbox games, but one title usually slips people by. Death Row was a highly acclaimed exclusive title for the Xbox, receiving largely positive reviews and an aggregated score of 79 out of 100 from Metacritic and 81% from Game Rankings. IGN and Team Xbox both named Death Row an Editor's Choice. The game won Team Xbox's 2002 Breakthrough Game of the Year award, and IGN's 2002 Best Xbox Game That Nobody Played. If you can get the game for a really cheap price, it's definitely worth picking up. It's one of my personal all-time favourites for the original Xbox, and it has a really great multiplayer option with a lot of great maps, teams to choose from, and a customisable soundtrack. Death Row comes highly recommended. Before we go into 2003, one of the mistakes that Microsoft made when they released the original Xbox was the original controller. Now, a lot of gamers were quite happy with the original controller, and some actually preferred playing Halo with the original large Duke controller. But it seemed the majority of gamers worldwide weren't happy with the size of the controller. Now, Japan was the only region in the world which didn't get the original Duke controller on release. The Controller S, a smaller, lighter Xbox controller, was originally the standard controller for Japan. Designed for users with smaller hands, the Controller S was later released in other territories by popular demand in 2002. This then replaced the standard controller in the US Xbox's retail packaging and in Europe in 2003, with the larger original Duke controller remaining still available only as an accessory.
The Rock and Bill Gates are known worldwide for their vast array of catchphrases. For example, The Rock has "Know your role and shut your mouth," "Just bring it, jabroni," and Bill Gates, you have some pretty cool catchphrases as well. What are some of your favorites?
My favorite is probably writing hardcore C to create slick tight code.